Hello, today we're talking about soil formation. So what causes soil to form? Soil by definition is a loose mixture of small rock fragments, organic matter, water, and air that can support the growth of vegetation. And it forms by the weathering of parent rock and the decomposition and mixing of living things. So weathering of parent rock. Weathering breaks down parent rock into smaller and smaller pieces over time. Those pieces then begin to mix with organic material to form what we know as soil. So in picture 1, the soil begins to form. This is the disintegrating rock, commonly known as bedrock or solid rock. In stage 2, simple organisms start to happen, such as organic matter, such as maybe a small fine grass. Then you have your parent material, and you slowly have parent material breaking apart. In stage 3, the horizons start to form. Your organic matter is on the surface with mineral particles, your parent rock and your bedrock are down here, and then you start to see layers forming in between where that parent rock is slowly breaking up and continually getting smaller and smaller. And then in picture 4, you'll have a well-developed soil. So it has everything from 1, 2, and 3, and you'll notice it has a B horizon. So the horizons are clearly defined in this stage of the well-developed soil. Decomposition and mixing by living things. So microorganisms such as bacteria and fungi break down the remains of plants and animals. This happens in the dirt itself. So the decayed organic matter is known as humus. Not hummus, that's something you eat made of chickpeas, but humus. And it contains nutrients that the plants need to grow. So it's very rich and fertile and very dark in color, and it's often mixed in with the material of the organisms physically growing on the surface. The larger the animals, such as worms and moles, and groundhogs and squirrels and chipmunks, like to loosen the soil as they burrow. Your dog may even loosen soil. So because of that, it starts to increase the amount of oxygen that's found within the soil, and thus it improves the ability of the soil to drain water. That's why when it rains, unless it rains a very, very large amount at one time, the water doesn't just stay standing on the surface of the soil, but it gets taken into the ground, so it literally is absorbed. So how long does it take the soil to form? There are 4 main factors that are going to determine the time it's going to take. The first one is the rock type. If it's a softer material or a softer type of rock, of course, it will break down quicker. The second is the climate. Are you in a warm, wet, humid climate, or are you in a really dry climate with a little bit of rain? The warm, wet climate, of course, is going to create soil faster because of the moisture composition. The third factor is topography. It's where the soil develops faster in flat areas with less erosion. If you live on a flat plain or on a farm that's flat, you're going to have much more developed soil because it's going to be easy. There's nowhere for it to go. But if you live on a hill, things like water go downward. So anytime it rains, things wash. Therefore, the topography is really important because if it's flat, it's conducive, and if it's not flat, it's going to weather away quickly. And the fourth factor is plants and animals. So the more plant and animal life means the soil is going to develop faster because it's going to allow more oxygen to be taken in, more mixing to occur, and that decomposition is going to quickly happen because the burrowing of the animals and the soil being moved from the plants. So let's look at what horizons are. A soil profile consists of several horizons. There are 4 horizons listed here, O, A, B, and C, but there are also 2 additional horizons, E, which would be found between A and B, and then R, which is often just not noted as a horizon because it's basically solid. It's at the very bottom under C down here. So the O horizon is the humus on the top on the ground surface right up here, often commonly referred to as leaf litter. The A horizon is the rich topsoil filled with organic matter. This is dark in color. This is what you need to have your plants grow. If you plant flowers in your yard, you often go to Home Depot or Lowe's and you buy topsoil. It's that really soft, wet, moist, rich, deep soil. This is also where the zone of leaching occurs, which brings me to the E layer, which is the eluviation layer. And basically, it's what allows the rich nutrients from here to go down or to leach, to move through into the B soil layer. The B soil layer is known as the subsoil layer. It's also called the zone of accumulation because basically all the material from the rich organic matter from A are going to basically leach or move through and go and settle in B. So it's very soluble and it has lots of minerals such as calcite, which is very important in terms of growth. If you also notice, this is the last layer where plants are going to have their roots. The sea horizon is weathered bedrock, which is the quote rotten rock. And then of course the bedrock, or that layer R I mentioned, is going to be found the very bottom and it's going to be solid. So properties of soil. There are different types of soil textures. I'm sure you may not think about it on an everyday basis, but I'm sure you've encountered these different types. You have everything from the finest sands at the beaches to gravel and dirt in your backyard. So the amounts of the different sized particles are sand, silt, and clay are your three breakdowns. Silt is the very, well, it's not. Sand is big. You notice that you can physically hold a grain. Silt is much smaller if you notice here, but clay would be invisible. So clay is the smallest, silt is a little bigger, and then sand is bigger than that. Much bigger than this, and you're looking at things like gravel, and those are no longer considered true soil particles. So, properties of soil. Soil can be very different colors. It can be all the different colors over here in the picture, depending on where you're located and what materials or nutrients are in your soil. It can range from black, brown, red to orange, yellow, gray, and even white. The color is created by the different minerals and the amounts of the organic matter that you find within each of those individual soils. But most soils are a mixture of colors, meaning you'll find multiple colors within each of the different soils. The soil chemistry is determined by the pH, and it's because of the minerals and the organic material that are found within it. Different pH levels support different types of plants. Basically, if you live somewhere like in a desert, you're going to support cacti or low brush plants. You're not going to have large pine trees and dogwood trees in your yard. If you, however, lived in, say, a beautiful deciduous forest, such as here in Georgia, you may have lush plants like dogwoods and large trees like pine trees growing in your backyard because you're there going to be able to support much bigger plants, much bigger trees than something such as a desert, because deserts are going to be based on those silts and those sands, where we're based on clay, specifically Georgia red. All right, thanks for moving on. And properties of soil. Okay, so let's talk about soil. Pore space. I don't mean pore as in P-O-O-R, I mean P-O-R-E. That's the spaces that are found within the particles themselves. It can be porous, meaning it allows fluid movement, or it can be non-porous, which means nothing's getting through. So it's the space found between the soil particle itself. The more pore space it has, the more oxygen is able to flow and more water can get through it. This allows for plants to be able to grow. Or basically, it's a good environment for plant growth to thrive. If you have a non-porous, such as in this side right here, you're not letting plant growth happen because there's nowhere for that water to get. There's nowhere for plants to take in the nutrients that they need. All right, last but not least is soil fertility. This is how well the plants can be supported based on the soils that they have. This is affected by climate, humus amounts, minerals, nutrients, and of course, topography. So fertile soils are often found in areas with moderate rainfall and good temperatures. If you notice, a lot of in the United States, we see rich, pretty greens and light greens here in the middle of the country. This is because those are areas that are very flat and very rich in farmland. If you notice here on this part of the country, and this part of the country, you start seeing lots of browns and like those deep orangey colors. That's because both of those are mountain ranges. This is the Appalachian Mountain Range, and this is the Rocky Mountain Range. And these out here are the Sierra Nevadas. So none of those would allow for good farmland, but the middle of our country is broad and flat, and it's the perfect type of soil that we need to have rich, industrious soil for plants to grow. All right, that's properties of soil. Have a great day, guys.